Okay, so welcome everybody to the last class this quarter of the Startup Bootcamp. And we're delighted to have Melanie Ramiro here today to talk to us about social media for innovators. And this is a very important topic because you're not going to have much if no one knows about you. And the use of social media is one of the best ways for startups to make themselves known. And Melanie has got a world of experience and knowledge in the subject matter. And we're fortunate to have her here today. So Melanie has been working at UCR for several years, and I believe we met when I first arrived a few years ago, and she was doing media work for library services. And I believe since then she's moved up and on, but still at UCR. And so I'll let her tell us a little bit more about what she's doing at the university, and then we'll have her presentation. Melanie, I'll leave it up to you if you want to be interrupted or just have people save up their questions in the chat until the end, and then we'll take it from there. So everyone, welcome to Melanie.
Welcome everyone, and thank you again, Jay and Margarita, for having me. A couple of things in this presentation. It helps at certain points to have a high level of participation. So I'll let you know when that is coming up. I'll also take pauses in between sections for questions. So if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat. However, since I'm sharing my slides, I may not be able to see them. So I will look to Jay and Margarita to kind of pop on and say if we've got questions from the audience.
Sorry, I was gonna say, as far as the questions go, you can put it in the chat, and I was thinking maybe we can do a hand raising system, because that's something you can do on here. I don't know if you guys
That would be great.
know, but you could check under reactions, and then it says raise your hand, and yeah, either one of those methods, I'll be looking out, paying attention, and moderating them.
Perfect. That would be great. So like Jay said, I did run social media marketing and communications for the library for the last 5 years, and literally about 2 or 3 weeks ago, transitioned over to the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences as their performing arts marketing specialist. Concurrently, I'm also the director of marketing and communications for UCR Staff Assembly and co-chair of the marketing and communication subcommittee for UCR Healthy Campus. So I've got my hands in a lot of different pies, and I will share with you what I know. So let me make sure I'm over in the right place so we can begin. So let's start talking about social media for the purposes of innovation and business. The audience that Jay works with is entrepreneurial. So I'm going to keep most of what I have tailored to that type of application. So if you're starting a business or starting a foundation, starting some kind of innovative movement, social media is one avenue for marketing and connecting with your potential customers. It's best to look at where are your customers already hanging out and how do they like to be connected with? Do they like to consume content? Do they like a lot of engagement? And that can advise your strategy when using social media. So each business owner, each founder is going to know their audience best. And by the end of this, you will have some insight and some guidance to help you learn more about your audience and how you can serve them. Don't feel like you have to do screenshots. I will send Jay and Margarita a copy of the slides as a PDF. So feel free to just be locked in and engaged with us right now. You'll get all the notes later. So going back to which platform should you choose, here are some general guidance that I've learned, at least from my audiences here at UCR. Our staff tends to hang out on Facebook. Our faculty tends to hang out on Twitter. Our students tend to be on either Instagram or Snapchat. YouTube is kind of a catch-all for anything video. The folks who like to complain like to go to Reddit. And the folks who really just enjoy fun and lively video content tend to be on TikTok. Other platforms kind of can go here and there. LinkedIn is the best place to engage with professional peers, maybe mentor, mentee, from a faculty to a student, or from staff to staff, peer-to-peer mentoring. Pinterest is great when you're ideating, trying to think of new branding designs, things like that, anything highly visual. And it's also a great place if you have things like infographics to share or information, say, if you were doing cooking recipes or things like that. So anything that's highly visual can go there. When approaching social media for a business purpose, it helps you tremendously to have a content calendar. And all that you need to do is think about, what do you want to achieve on social media? Do you want people to buy your products, sign up for your list, engage with you, whatever? And then you reverse engineer your plans so that you're triggering those behavioral psychology points to prompt that behavior, to be compelling enough to drive your audience to take the action that you want them to take. Then build your content. Sorry, it popped up two at once, but you can build your content around holidays, especially for in any kind of a retail or product-based service. You can also announce events or other special promotions. I always like to focus on quality over quantity. There are some people who say post every hour, every day. Who's got that kind of time? Not me. So let's be real. Think strategically. What is the best time of day to catch your audience when they're already on their mobile devices or on their computer looking for something fun to engage with? You can plan around that, and then less is more, because the feedback that I've gotten from the student interns who are on my team, from fellow staff, is that sometimes too much just comes across as spammy. So less is more, quality over quantity always. And then even if you're selling, you want to come from a place of service over sales. Like, service is inviting people, enchanting, like Guy Kawasaki would say, as opposed to push, 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 right? You can show something that you have available, but then talk about it in a way that incites curiosity and makes people ask you questions, rather than just like, oh, stop trying to sell your stuff to me. And then a lot of advice is out there. And sometimes just if you go against the grain of like what everybody else is doing, if everybody else is doing video and you're curating really beautiful still images, or flip it, if everybody else is doing still images, maybe you can play with video. Try back and forth and try different things until you land on the formula that works for you. Don't just follow what every social media marketing expert out there says, because as you get more and more engaged with your audience, you're going to learn more and more what works for you. So trust yourself in this process and feel free to play with it. From a business standpoint, it helps tremendously to be able to plan your posts more in advance rather than just doing it on the fly, because again, who's got time for that? The software that I used when I was working for the library for the past 5 years that I absolutely loved is called eClincher. It's at the top of this list. It is a little bit on the pricey side for a business, but not compared to, say, Hootsuite or Edgar. It's on par with those, but I found the features of it a lot more robust. You can really do your research on what software does what you want it to do. For the amount of content that I was responsible for managing across all of those different platforms, I needed something really robust. If you're just managing, say, 2 platforms, you might be able to go with something a little bit scaled down. And again, just do your research on each of these platforms. This is just a snapshot of what I could pull quickly. There are tons more out there. There are lots of sites that offer reviews and comparisons of software side by side. So take the time to look into those and find what works best for you. This is an example of what it looked like inside my eClincher dashboard. So over on the left-hand side, you can see the publishing and scheduling. That's where I would drag my images, enter my caption. You could tag people. You could create your first comment. You could tag multiple profiles. So that's where you create it. And then you see the add schedule button. So you could schedule it not just once, but multiple times. So I could plan out content for a year in advance if I wanted to. On the right side of the screen, you can see the calendar. So you could see the days when I had posts scheduled. And then it also gives you a good idea of where you need to fill in the blanks if you want consistent content across like every weekday or every 3 days or so forth. Quick question, Jay?
Pricing.
Pricing. Pricing is always available on their website. You usually just go to like eclincher.com/pricing or plans. This one, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm happy to email it later. I know that some software will offer a discount to nonprofit organizations. Other ones won't. Other ones offer a month-to-month payment plan. So it really depends on your budget. I've seen them everywhere from $7 a month all the way up to like $120 a month. So it depends on what you've got available in your budget. And then you can always upgrade later. Start where you are, work, upgrade.
Looks like their basic plans are $39 to $59 per month.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We just paid annually. So I was like, oh, I don't remember off the top of my head. So here are 13 common mistakes to avoid with social media. No plan. If you have no plan and you're just flying by the seat of your pants, trying to build the plane as you fly it, it's going to be really hard to measure what worked and what didn't. So if you just sit down and get intentional with what you want to post, even if all you can plan is 1 month at a time, just plan 1 month at a time, batch your content. It will make your life so much easier. I promise you. Then buying followers. A lot of people will get DMs. I get DMs all the time. Would you like us to help you get 5,000 followers? Blah, blah, blah. I'm not interested because most of those followers, honestly, are bots. And I'm not interested in having 1,000 bots following me. I'd rather have 100 actual humans following me because then they're engaging with my content. They're my real audience because I'm not about perception. I don't want to just look, oh my gosh, they have 5,000 followers, but like 400 or 4,000 of them are bots. Just not valuable to me at all. And I personally don't believe it would be of value to you either. One size fits all approaches to content creation don't tend to work across the board. Like I said before, your audience is going to be unique to you. What you have available for them and what you can share with them of value will be unique to the relationship that you have. So get deep into knowing and understanding your audience, as well as knowing and understanding your own passion and your purpose, and find the place where those two intersect. And that is the magic place. Talking to everyone goes hand in hand with what I said before. If you're trying a one size fits all strategy, it's much too broad and people won't understand. If you're talking to an audience at UCR, you don't just say, hey, students, or hey, faculty, you say, hey, Highlanders. You get very specific to what that audience calls themselves or how they refer to themselves, and that can help you tremendously. Undefined goals goes back to no plan. If you don't have specific goals, you won't know when you've reached them. So even if you start with baby steps, I want to reach 50 followers. I want to reach 100 followers. I want to make this many sales. I want to get this many signups. Just start with those goals, work steadily toward them every day. And then when you hit that goal, set a new goal. Just constantly evolve and level up. Looking unoriginal has a lot to do with design, especially if you look at visual social media feeds. Obviously, text, you want to be original, write your own content, don't plagiarize, but the same thing goes for design. There are a lot of design services out there. For example, Canva is one that's very commonly used, and it's commonly used, but where I see people go wrong with it is they don't customize the templates at all. There are a lot of wonderful templates out there, but you have to remember to customize them so that they match your brand colors and fonts and all those other things. So it actually looks like it belongs with your business and not just something you picked off of there. And then you scroll over to somebody else's post and they have the exact same image with a slightly different text. So that's what you want to avoid. Take the time. You can do it in 5 to 10 minutes, or you can outsource it to a designer and give them your direction, have them customize it so it looks like it belongs to you, like it comes from you, and it will make you stand out more.
It's time for lunch.
Another thing, sorry, my Alexa is telling me it's time for lunch. Another thing that you can think of is hashtags. For various platforms, you can have hashtags that help to drill down into the special interest groups for your audience. Do a little bit of research to find out which hashtags work best. Some people think that the more followers a hashtag has, the better. Not necessarily true if it's oversaturated. If it's got like 3 million followers, you might get lost in the shuffle. If it's got 300,000 followers, that might actually be better and help you be more visible within that hashtag's feed. So you could have like one that's got a lot and one that has very few, both specifically tied to your audience. And then having a mix of them helps you be identifiable and found within like the suggested posts. Ignoring or deleting comments. And this is not talking about trolls because we'll talk about them in a second. So if people comment on your post, asking questions, asking for feedback, asking for directions, it helps to respond to them publicly so that if another person has the same question, they can see the answer. Now, that being said, if somebody is trolling your page and being rude, just delete their comments and move on. If you have to, block their profile and move on. If it's a legitimate negative feedback, as opposed to a troll, respond in kind, be compassionate, invite them into dialogue offline, but do so publicly. invite them to DM you their concerns and get them into conversation, not on your public page, so that one, your audience can see you do actually care about your customer's experience with your brand, but two, you're taking, you know, there's a saying when I used to live in Russia, this is not a telephone conversation. When things got too sensitive, that it needed to be a face-to-face conversation. We can remix that. This is not a public social media conversation. We need to get you in dialogue offline, show you that we have real people who care about your concerns and want to make it right. So feel free to take and remix that little proverb. Not interpreting analytics goes hand in hand with undefined goals and no plan. Analytics will give you so much rich information about where to post, when to post, what to post, who your audience is, where they live. If you're on Twitter, they get really creepy, how much money they make, all kinds of crazy, crazy demographic data you can find out. Understanding that will help you to deeply, deeply, deeply empathize with your audience. So pay attention to those and check them at least once a week, I would say. Forgetting about accessibility is something that is a constantly evolving thing in the field of marketing, and it definitely pertains to social media. And this is mostly with adding alt text and descriptors to your images. Some software now allows you to do this. Some of the platforms allow you to do it natively, but it also has to do with where you put the hashtags. So a screen reader, if you put a hashtag in the middle of this sentence, for example, forgetting hashtag about disability, that's exactly how the screen reader is going to read it, which sounds weird. So you could put forgetting about accessibility, and then below that, put like hashtag ADA, hashtag disability, or something like that. Put them in the comments instead of in the caption, or put them at the bottom of your caption after your descriptive content, your sentence, so that it sounds more natural to the human ear. Not building relationships is a big mistake. A lot of people they get so caught up in content creation and pushing content out on a regular basis that you forget that the point of not buying followers is that you have actual live humans engaging with your account, and you want to build relationships with those actual live humans on a one-to-one level as much as you can. At first, if it's just you, obviously you operate within what bandwidth you have. And then eventually, if you can hire a social media manager who knows and understands how to do this, and then you can give them directives for how to engage and how to nurture and build those relationships. It's just like when old door-to-door salesmen used to knock on your door and be friendly and kind, right? Like nobody does that anymore, except for Girl Scouts. They'll still do it. So if they're friendly and polite and kind, as they come up to you and ask you, would you like to buy XYZ? You know, you're going to remember them better, and you're going to tell them to come back next year, things like that. Whereas if people are just kind of like, whatever, treat you like you're just a number, then you're just going to move on to the next thing. Think about how you would want to be treated, and then reflect that back to how you engage with your customers. Okay, it brought up 2 again. So making it all about you. This means you obviously have goals for your business, but you also have to understand that your customers, your clients, your followers, they have their own goals. So if you create content based around what they want to achieve, based on your deep understanding and your empathy with them, you're going to see better results, better engagement, more followers than if you're just like, hey, look at me, I'm so awesome, right? Nobody likes the person who's like that. Whereas if you say, hey, we have these wonderful workshops that will teach you how to do XYZ. These help you reach your goals, you know, A, B, and C. Understanding where your people are now, where they want to be, and helping them to bridge that transition is what you're here for. And last, but probably most importantly, not collecting emails. If you have a social media profile and you've got 1 million followers, and then that social media whole network gets shut down, you have no business anymore. Unless you had gotten all of those followers onto your email list to continue marketing to them offline. I heard somebody say it recently, I can't remember who, otherwise I would give attribution, but they said, don't build your business on rented land, like on rented property. Like any social media site is rented property. You do not own it, they own it. Facebook owns it, Instagram owns it. Actually, Facebook owns both, but like Twitter owns it. It belongs to them. And if anything ever happened to that network, all of your followers go away with it. So it's important to get them offline, get them to your website, and get them on your email list. Any questions before we move on to the topic of branding?
I actually do have a question.
Sure.
How would you go about collecting emails? Like, would it be, because I don't know, imagining doing it bluntly doesn't seem like it's the right way to go. You know what I mean? So how would you, for example, go around asking for emails?
Usually it's really easy. You can create something that links from your social media profile to either a basic landing page with an opt-in box, and you can connect that with some kind of an email service like MailChimp or HubSpot or something where you offer them something of value. If you're selling something, you can offer a discount. You can offer free shipping. If you're a service provider, you can offer like a free 15-minute consultation or a tip sheet that offers like these top 5 tips to help you get from point A to point B. If you want more information, then you can book a consult after. Some kind of a lead magnet or free content piece in exchange for their usually a first name and email is what you want on the opt-in box, so that you can say, Dear Jay or Dear Margarita, and not just, hey. Again, going back to personalize for your audience, it helps tremendously. So if you have something that's like your frequently asked questions, like your top 3 or top 5 most frequently asked questions, you can put those in a tip sheet, create a landing page in something like I said, like HubSpot, MailChimp, some other email provider service, and then just invite people to get over there, download the free thing. And then you create a nurture sequence in an email marketing sequence that goes from that. So all of it should go from social media to a monthly newsletter, a weekly news, some kind of a weekly or monthly or biweekly, whatever frequency you establish works for you. Communication strategy where you're kind of reminding them, I exist. Hey, I exist. And here's some more value for you. Hey, I exist. I'm over here. You want to be top of mind for people. So that engagement comes from both the social media strategy as well as your email communication strategy that runs in tandem with it.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal. All right. So branding. Branding as a noun has these 2 meanings. And, you can brand a cow or a horse with the rancher's logo so that if all your cows get out into the field and mix with all your neighbors' cows, you can tell which ones are yours and which ones are theirs. Or it also applies to the concept of business where you're talking about distinctive advertising or identity, a look, a brand. And we'll talk specifically about all the different ways that this can come into play in this section. Oops. There we go. All right. So here are some iconic brands that I pulled. Depends on which site you go to, which one is the top 10 or the top 20. So I just pulled a selection of the world's most recognized brand logos. And something interesting about this segment, for example, I used to work at the YMCA. The YMCA logo used to be the number 3 most recognized logo in the world. What happened? They rebranded and they fell off the list. So I'll show you in a second a few before and afters about rebranding and maybe some guidance on when you might want to consider rebranding. Because if you're at the very beginning creating your brand, or if you're in the middle of your business and you're like, our business has kind of changed a little bit, it might be time for a refresh. It helps to know like what might drive that, right? So people are exposed to thousands and thousands of brand messages every single day, and logo recognition or brand recognition can help you tremendously to remain top of mind to your potential customers. So for example, rebranding before and after. Federal Express used to be the name for FedEx. So when they came to rebrand, it actually made sense to completely change not just the logo, but like the name, because FedEx, everybody just said FedEx because it was shorter, it was easier. And then something that's kind of genius about this, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you see right here, there's an arrow hidden in the FedEx logo. Whether that was happy accident or intentional design, we may not know, but there it is. And it's kind of genius. So here's another example of rebranding before and after. FedEx's competition, right? UPS. And there's the after. This one is not that strikingly different. I don't know if it was absolutely necessary, but it's another one worth comparing. If you look at side by side, it's basically the same shape, a shield. They took the string off because people don't wrap their packages with string anymore, and they just made it look a little more modern and fresh. Another example, a little closer to home, before and after. UC Riverside. We redid our brand last summer and they rolled out the new identity, the new look. It's strikingly similar because a lot of people kind of liked what we had. They just wanted a little something different, a little bit brighter blue, a little bit flashier, modern logo look. So there you have it, before and after. And then last but not least, YMCA before, third most recognized logo in the world, and after. Personally, not a fan, but you know, the old logo also had this triangle in here, which stood for strong kids, strong families, strong communities. That used to be their tagline. They changed the tagline to, and because YMCA stood for Young Men's Christian Organization, they wanted to kind of just shorten it to the YMCA or the Y. So this was like the Trinity, you know. So that was part of the reason I think that they redid it, but we'll never know all of the reasons behind it, but it can help you to know, is it really necessary? Like in the case of FedEx, I would argue necessary. The rest of them, I would argue optional. Not necessarily good or bad, but optional. Also, let me back it up a second. Do you see right here on this logo, the little TM? Okay, going on to this one, does anybody know the difference between these two symbols? Yes, no, I see heads shaking, no. Okay, so TM means you intend to trademark it. The R means it is a registered trademark. It is protected. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can rip it off. And you have all the rights to send them cease and desist letters, and the courts will usually find in your favor with minimal fighting if you have a registered trademark. If you just have a TM, you might or might not have protection. So that's something that you're going to want to do. We also have on UCR's campus, there are some patent and trademark resources in Orbach Library. So if you are interested in learning more, you can visit Orbach Library, especially once all of things are up and running again, and get guidance on searching trademarks, searching patents, things like that. Any questions before we move on to the next section where we'll talk about archetypes in branding? Nope. All righty. This is my favorite part. So these are 12 common archetypes in storytelling, and branding is really storytelling. We are telling a story as an archetype to our customers who are another archetype, different than us, sometimes different than us, sometimes similar, but these are not all of whatever could be. These are just the most common ones. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Mind you, let me put one caveat here. This is just a design that's thrown onto a color wheel. It does not mean if you're an artist, you have to be blue, and if you're a lover, you have to be red. It does not mean that. So this is just a visual representation. So let's not mistake that. So here's an example of a personal brand, Steve Jobs. Based on the list that we had on the previous page, based on the characteristics that were often used to describe Steve Jobs, I would probably categorize him as an outlaw / rebel, or an artist, or maybe a combination of the two. This is Wendys. If you ever need a laugh, go read Wendys' Twitter. It's hilarious. They are constantly making jokes, picking on the competition, throwing shade. I would classify Wendys as a jester archetype because they're all about just poking fun. Oprah, on the other hand, comes across very, very wise, very motherly, very nurturing. I would probably classify her either as a sage or a caregiver, or again, maybe a combination of the two. Benefit Cosmetics, on the flip side, is very sweet. A lot of their stuff is, focused around hearts and things like that. So I would probably put them as a lover archetype or romantic. Depends on how you want to call it. It's the same idea. They do these again, not every single day, but they'll put things out. Well, they'll say, "Hey, Bene Babes, you want to pick me up? Tweet us, and then we'll tweet you back." And then they send these little cards back to your tweet, and it's a great little way to engage with your customers. Send them something nice. It's also totally a shameless product plug because every single one of these cards points at one of their cosmetic products. So when you're designing your brand, first, it helps to know yourself. Understand who you are like at your deepest core, what you're here to do on this planet, what you want your business to serve, like what hole in the market you want it to serve that need, right? And then it also helps to understand your people. So think about, what's your brand's number one goal? Do you want to connect with people? Do you want to provide structure and organization? Do you want to help them achieve new things? Or are you on a path of discovery? And then you can take these 4 goals and overlay them with those categories of archetypes that we showed before. Very often, the people who are really, really driven to connect to others tend to be the lovers, the jesters, the everyman, right? Or every woman, right? Every man, every woman just wants to be your friend. The jester wants to make you laugh. The lover wants that deep, like one-on-one connection, the people who'll talk till 4 a.m. with you about like the deepest topics, the meaning of life, right? Whereas the explorer just wants to strike out and find new things. The sage wants knowledge, like to discover new knowledge. And the innocent just wants like safety, to feel like, okay, I'm protected. The world is not going to hurt me, right? Outlaws want no rules. Liberation is like barely scratching the surface here. Outlaws are like pirates, right? Like sons of anarchy. They just don't want any rules to apply to them. Magicians tend to, it says power, but it's really like the power of transformation. Heroes crave mastery, like Nike is a hero brand, just do it, right? Like you can do it. Caregivers are here to be of service to one another, to nurture others. Rulers, it says control, but it's really about structure and organization. Like follow these processes, follow these guidelines, right? And artists, they're looking to create what's never been created before. So that's innovation. So looking at, again, what's your brand's number one goal, and then see if one of these archetypes feels right to you. Another thing that I often tell people is think back to when you were a child. What were your favorite books? What were your favorite movies, your favorite stories? Who was your favorite character in those movies or stories that you identified with? And think about what could be used to describe them, because then you're probably on the right track. And sometimes it surprises you because somebody that you like as a character may not be the one that you most identify with. And they may not be that likable. They may have some flaws, but it's okay. We're human. We have flaws. And it's more important to be real and transparent and authentic to who you are than to try and appear like perfect. Nobody likes perfect. It's very alienating. So don't try for perfect. So who are you? Start with your demographics, like your age, gender, ethnicity, worldview, right? And then you can get into some psychographics, like what are your aspirations, your values, your frustrations and challenges? And then ask those same questions about your potential clients, your customers. And then if you want to go one layer deeper, you're going to go demographics, psychographics, and then habits. Because the nitty-gritty truth is in the habits, the daily habits. Again, you can have aspirations, values, all this stuff, but your daily habits are where you will reveal all the dirty little secrets about everybody's life. And that is also where you can strike those points of resonance. Because for me, for example, I'm such a geek. I'm such a fantasy nerd. I have Princess Leia on my shelf over there. I have Daenerys right above her. Okay. If you talk to me about any fantasy or any sci-fi, I will be geeking out with you like till the cows come home, right? But not everybody vibes like that. So if you understand what makes you vibe, what makes your customers vibe, and you guys can connect, you can use all those fun pop culture references and you'll just get each other. You can use that to drive your social media content strategy, and it makes it more fun, and it infuses a little bit of your personality into it. And it makes it come alive and sing. So hand in hand with who are you, understanding how you're different is more important than understanding why you're better. Different tends to be better. Again, if somebody wants to geek out with me about Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, I am down. Whereas, you know, if somebody started talking to me about Star Trek, an equally good series, I just don't know all the stuff. So understanding the small, subtle distinctions based on those psychographics, demographics, and habits will help. But understanding how you are different, not necessarily what you create, what you do, but like just maybe your approach, your delivery, your end product, any one of those things could make you different. So just understanding that will help you communicate your greatest and highest value to your customers. And then what do you do best? Not what makes you the best. What do you do better than anybody else? Cross-section with how you're different. These two things will help you create your brand promise. So whatever that is, just think about those two things. And I have some recommended reading on this because this is where I learned it. So if you get either one of these books, I Know How the World Sees You actually comes with a little code to give you a test to find your archetype. I don't remember if Fascinate does, but these are both by the same author, Sally Hogshead. They give so much great information about marketing and branding and advertising for a business. Fascinate is written more from a business perspective, whereas How the World Sees You applies to individuals as well. It can apply to your personal brand. This is an example of all the different possibilities of an archetype that you can get through her test. So I, for example, am the ringleader. My cross-section is power and passion. You take a test, it takes like 5 minutes, and then it'll give you a recommendation. Plus, then it also gives you these really rich words that you can use to describe what you do, what you provide. So you'll see mine says motivated, spirited, compelling. So one of the things that I put on my resume is compelling communication. Distinctive design, right? Because that's the other half of what I do is visual design. So here's another interpretation of this. If you're a geek like me and you really like Marvel comics. And here's another, again, don't have to worry about screenshotting, you're going to get the slides. Here's another interpretation of it that applies it to celebrities. So it's just a lot of fun. It's a handy tool, it's inexpensive to learn about what makes you different and can help you stand out from the competition. Pausing for a moment to see if we have any questions before we go on to talk about color theory. Nope, good, okay. Did you have a question, Jay? I saw you unmute.
We're all fascinated, keep going.
All right. I need you to get your typing fingers ready. And I did manage to get the chat window popped open because this is the part of presentation where it really helps to have engagement because then you'll see that other people are thinking the same thing you're thinking. So looking at the color red, drop in the chat, just 1 or 2 words, what red makes you think of? What does it make you feel? What do you associate with the color red? Love, love, blood, rose. Here are some examples of red logos and commonly held associations in Western culture for the color red. So you've got power, passion, affection, love, danger, survival, and rage. And in Eastern culture, it also means luck. Orange, same question. What does orange make you think of? Calm, okay. Fall, my favorite season. Summer, bright and cheerful, yes. So here are some orange logos, and again, commonly held meanings of orange in design. So power, energy, friendliness, fun, talking about cheer, bright, positivity, creativity, things like that. Fun fact, it also stimulates appetite, which is why a lot of food places will use it. So what about the color yellow? Summer again, timid, fresh. Yeah, it can be all over the place. There's no wrong answers. It's just what does it make you think of naturally? Happy. So again, yellow logos. McDonald's was on the fence. Nobody could tell if they were orange or yellow. So joy, happiness, cheer, optimism. Somebody said timid, anxiety and fear. People used to say yellow bellied to mean you are a coward. It's kind of old fashioned. You don't hear people say it anymore, but they did. What about green? Nature, comfort, yep. Calm, exploration, yep. Some of the other ones, life, rest, peace, clarity, harmony, balance. So when I lived in Russia, I learned another thing. They have 2 words for blue. two different colors. They consider these two different colors. So this is one blue. And this is the other blue. These in the East are considered two different colors. But thinking about those two colors, what do you think of when you see blue? I went too fast. So technology, yeah, loyalty, clean, casual, yep. So it kind of depends on which shade of blue you're talking about. Like the lighter blue makes me feel very like expansive and calm, and whereas the darker blue is very trust and structured and order, like you think of uniforms, right? Police, military, dark blue uniforms. What about violet? Space, spiritual, romance, oh yeah, anger. Fun fact about this color, it was often associated with royalty because back in the day, apparently purple and violet dye was very expensive to produce. So only royal people, like really, really wealthy people, could afford it. It's also commonly associated with like mystery or magic. So it's no wonder that things like the Willy Wonka logo and the Harry Potter logo are purple. Pink. Think about pink, separate from red. Feminine, happy, innocent, love. I'm not sure where anger was. Was that for purple, Jay? Yeah, purple. Oh yeah, I guess turning purple with anger, that makes sense too. Women, innocent, love. So here, there was kind of a wide selection of pink logos in every shade of pink, dark pink, bright pink, light pink, soft pink. And it has a wide array of meanings too, again, depending on the shade. Compassion, nurturing, hope, romantic, empathy, sometimes childlike or immature. Mostly feminine though, yes. But what about something like brown? I see you laughing. Earthy, natural, yes. If you love coffee and chocolate, you know, those are the things that you think of. I don't like brown. It's not my favorite color either, but I love me some chocolate and I love coffee. I think it has to be a right shade for you to like it, like a nice, rich espresso brown, you know, very, very like shiny, you know. If it just looks like dirt, yeah, it's kind of like, meh. What about gold? Rich, money, wealth, royalty, luxury. There's a very small selection of logos that use gold in their branding. And look how expensive they all look. Rolex, Versace, Lindt chocolate, MGM Grand, I think just goes back to that old lion that roared in the movies, you know, again, with that Hollywood royalty image. On the flip side, what about silver? Excellence, jewels, sterile, yeah, like doctor's tools, dentist tools, things like that. And again, it depends on the application, but here's some examples, and here's some, you know, glamorous, high tech, sleek, cold, indecisive. It could depend on how you do it. Good design can always save a color that might be problematic. But if you have bad design with bad color, then it's just very alienating. So what about black? Negative, sophisticated, mystery, nightlife. Yep. Can have a lot of different meanings. Again, it goes back to application, but I think several of those are here. In Western culture, death is associated with blackness, like black as a color, not like skin color by any means, but like, you know, funeral colors, things like that. On the flip side, what about white? Post-color TV, old black and white TVs, yeah. Pure, yep. Sterile, tech, yeah. Hospitals, yeah. Clean. So they're in black, so you can see them, but these logos are actually like their normal color is white. Tends to be pure, innocent, clean, new beginnings, blank slate. But in Eastern culture, death. White is the funeral color in the East, because that's the color of like dead skin. So here's something that I find interesting when looking at color theory, right? There's the concept of the chakras, and each one has a specific meaning, like when you get into spiritual study. So the root chakra, or red, tends to have to do with tribal loyalty, whereas the second chakra, where birth takes place, right? Creation and partnership. Individual responsibility is associated with the third chakra at the solar plexus. Healing, right here at the heart, green. A lot of massage things you'll see healing, and then expression right here at your throat, where your voice comes from. Vision right here, and then wisdom and higher purpose right off the top of your head. So going back again to a lot of those color theory applications, it has a lot of things in common with this chakra. And I mentioned this the last time I gave this webinar because it was right around election season. You'll notice also that one particular party talks about tribal loyalty, law and order, and another party, won't name names, but talks about like vision for the future instead of like structure, order, blah, blah, blah. What could we become instead of adhering to what is? So two different approaches to building loyalty to a party as well. It's so fascinating. This is another thing that I find really interesting when thinking about design is shapes and symbols that go into the concept of an icon or a logo. This book, and I grabbed it because last time somebody asked me what it was. It's Signs of Life, 5 Universal Shapes and How to Use Them by Angelus Arian. It's beautifully short and gorgeously illustrated, and it has lots of examples of how these symbols are used through time, dating back to ancient man and woman. So for example, triangles tend to represent achievement. Circles tend to represent, I don't know why it's going so slow, wholeness. The plus sign, the cross, tends to represent connection. Spirals represent transformation, and squares represent stability. So thinking about like how you would conceptualize your logo, your brand identity, has a lot to do with like perception. And there's a lot of this stuff that if you really think about it, yeah, these symbols do get applied in this manner quite frequently. And yeah, I definitely recommend this book if you have a chance. Take a look at it. So getting into branding in action. Here is the assortment of all of the different University of California word marks. A lot of people will call this a logo. It's actually not a logo. A logo is like an icon or design. These are word marks because it's basically taking the name and making it into a graphic element. But notice how different they all are. They're all blue and gold, but each one has its own distinct feel. Here's something from our new rebranded guide talking about our power claims for UC Riverside. And you can see how this little arrow thingy, it's called a ray, this little thing right here underneath the UC, and how a variation of it is applied all around this image. And then how it's applied again over here, over the text and right through this picture. So that's a great example of branding in action, as well as here is our logo and our word mark for UCR Healthy Campus. Very different. We designed it around UCR's citrus history, bright, fresh, colorful. So it's slightly different than UCR brand, and it's got our own little feel. I love what the SRC does. If you're not on campus at UC Riverside and you don't know, SRC stands for Student Recreation Center, and their tagline is "Wreck It." I love it. So it looks like it's breaking. They've got elements of the UCR branding in here with the blue and gold. They've also got like rays kind of going all over this design. If you look at it, super fun, very colorful. If you go to their website, it's actually moving. Here's an example of a brand identity that I designed from the ground up for the Creator Lab in Orbach Library. Now, to be clear, I did not design this logo. So their logo, their word mark was handed to me, but then the concept, the identity, the archetype is what I did. And then these elements that you see up here at the top, that was my work. So we took and put it together to appeal to the maverick or outlaw archetype meshed with the artist. So for like the Steve Jobs of the world, the people who want to come in and invent something new, to not just do what's already been done, but create it from the ground up. That is who the Creator Lab is designed for. It's meant to appeal to everybody who wants to try and learn something outside of what they already know. Experiment with new technology, collaborate with people outside their field. So that's what this is. It's got the blue and gold of UCR in it, but I also added some pops of the pink and the purple just to mix it up a little bit and kind of distinguish it from everything else on campus. And then fun little fact, these icons at the top, you see this gold overlay? That is actually a sacred geometric symbol called a Merkaba, and it's the sacred symbol for creation. So fun little fact and elements that you can put in there that most people won't know about. This is one of my favorite fun facts about branding and brand influence. Did you know that blue and gold was first chosen by UC Berkeley in 1875 as their brand colors? It then later got adopted by the state of California as our official state colors, but not until 1951 officially. So the UC actually influenced the brand identity of the state of California. And you can read more about it. I'll have the links on the slides. Super, super fun fact. Borrowed this graphic from UCLA because Berkeley didn't have one, but you get the idea. I finally found it. When I've done this before, I remembered this fact. Another fun fact about branding, and this is done by Designmatic. They did this beautiful infographic over here. The preferred colors in the young adult demographic, so 20 to 30-year-old folks, are blue and gold. Yay for us, for UC. That just worked out really lucky because I'm sure this survey that they did and this research that they did was long after Berkeley chose their colors. So this just worked out really, really well for all of us in the UC that our two colors are the two most popular colors for our target demographic. So the other folks do surveys like this, so everybody's results might be slightly different, but this is the one that I had remembered seeing. And if you look closely at the shades of blue and gold right here, they're very similar to what you see on UCOP's branding website or UC Office of the President. So, yay. So that's all I have. Are there any questions before we wrap it up for the day?
That's a lot of information, Melanie. Fantastic job.
Yeah.
I know, brain dump, boom.
I was also wondering, Melanie, are you okay with them contacting you after the presentation? Because I am gonna upload it to YouTube also.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Just wondering.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, you can, I literally just launched my new platforms on social media today for the UCR Perform. So there's not a whole lot of content there yet, but you can reach out to me that way, or you can reach out to me via email. My email is shown here on the slide. And thank you all for joining today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope it will help you as you create your brand identity and your social media strategy.
Well, thank you for coming and for presenting and sharing this information with us.
I'm glad to. Thank you so much.
So awesome job, Melanie. And that not only concludes this class, but that concludes our quarter. So we ended with a big bang. Melanie really was the highlight of one of the highlights of our quarter for the Startup Bootcamp. So stay tuned for 2022. It's just around the corner. In the meantime, you can download the information on YouTube, and we'll make available the slide deck.